In the vast chambers of the Galactic Council archives, located in the heart of the Centaurus Arm, Chief Archivist Zixtal's tentacles trembled as they reviewed the data for the third time. The holographic displays showed the same unavoidable conclusion. The humans of Earth were about to achieve faster than light travel. This cannot be ignored, Zixtal muttered, their color-shifting skin turning a deep shade of worried purple. The archivist's assistant, a young Meridian named Kip, hovered nearby with growing concern. The morning cycle of the council was about to begin, and Zixtal knew they had to act quickly. Gathering their data crystals, they made their way through the gleaming corridors of the council tower. The morning light of 3 suns filtered through the crystal walls, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. Inside the council chamber, representatives from 500 species sat in rising tiers of seats, their quiet discussions filling the air with a mix of clicks, whistles, and electronic transmissions. Zixtal approached the central platform, their tentacles clutching the precious data that could change the course of galactic history. Honored council members, Zixtal began, their translator working overtime to convey the urgency in their voice. I bring troubling news from the Archives Division. The species known as humans are about to break the light barrier. A wave of dismissive chirps and electronic buzzes swept through the chamber. The Valaxians, looking like elegant crystalline structures, flickered their light patterns in what could only be described as laughter. Another primitive species learns to walk among the stars, spoke High Counselor Vectra of the Valaxians. Why should this concern us? Zixtal's skin rippled with frustrated patterns. Because, honored members, humans are different. Let me show you. Their tentacles worked quickly, bringing up a series of images on the chamber's main display. The first image showed a human device called a pressure cooker being used as an explosive. The next showed simple chemical fertilizers converted into weapons. Image after image displayed humans turning everyday items into tools of warfare. This species, Zixtal continued, evolved on what we classify as a Class 12 death world. They don't just survive there. They thrive. They turn everything they touch into either a tool or a weapon, sometimes both at once. The Meridian representative waved a glowing appendage dismissively. Many species adapt to harsh environments. The Krovax evolved in acid pools, yet they're peaceful members of our community. With respect, Zixtal countered, the Krovax didn't develop nuclear weapons before achieving powered flight. Humans did. They went from first flight to landing on their moon in just 66 solar cycles. Their rate of technological advancement is unprecedented. Only the Duraxians, ancient beings who looked like clouds of golden dust contained in environmental suits, showed signs of concern. Their representative, Elder Ix, floated forward. In our 100,000 years of observing emerging species, Elder Ix's thoughts resonated in everyone's minds. We have never seen such potential for both creation and destruction. The archivist's warning should not be dismissed. But the council had grown comfortable in its 10,000 years of peaceful expansion. Most members couldn't imagine that a single primitive species could pose any real challenge to their established order. We will note your concern, High Counselor Vectra stated formally, but no containment protocols are necessary. Let them join the galactic community like any other species. They will learn our ways, as all others have. As Zixtal left the chamber, Elder Ix floated beside them. They don't understand. The Duraxian whispered in their mind. Humans don't adapt to new environments. They make environments adapt to them. In the archives that evening, Zixtal made a personal entry. Today, the council ignored the first warning signs. When humans arrive, may our descendants forgive our arrogance. Little did the council know, Earth's first FTL test was scheduled for the very next day. The McSalty Trading Consortium's flagship, Prophet Eternal, dropped out of hyperspace near Earth's moon, its golden hull gleaming in the sunlight. Captain Vexnar stood on the bridge, his 4 arms crossed confidently across his chest. His species had done this 1,000 times before. Find a newly spacefaring race, dazzle them with technology, and establish trade agreements that always seem to favor the Mixalti. Begin the standard intimidation protocol, Vexnar ordered, his scaled skin reflecting the bridge's lights. Let's show these primitives what real space power looks like. The massive ship, alongside its 5 escort vessels, activated their shield arrays in a deliberately showy display of rippling energy fields. Their weapon systems powered up, creating beautiful but threatening patterns of light across their hulls. On Earth, millions watched the alien ships through telescopes, phones, and live streams. But instead of the expected panic, something very different happened. "Sir," his communications officer reported, sounding confused, "we're receiving thousands of transmission requests. Many appear to be from something called tech companies." Before Vexnar could respond, his security chief burst onto the bridge. "Captain, the humans are. They're taking pictures. Millions of them. And they're asking about our shield technology." Vexnar laughed. "Let them. What could they possibly do with images of our advanced?" He never finished that sentence. One of his junior officers interrupted. "Sir, you need to see this." On the main screen appeared something that made Vexnar's scales turn pale, a human entertainment channel called Tech Review Weekly. A cheerful human was holding what looked like a communication device case. "Today we're looking at the new Shield Tech phone case, reverse-engineered from those amazing alien ships that showed up last week. Drop tests show it's virtually indestructible, and it comes in 5 colors." "Impossible," Vexnar hissed. "Our shield technology took centuries to perfect. They couldn't have." Another officer called out, "Sir, 3 different Earth companies are now selling variations of our shield tech. One of them made it into a cooking pot." The situation rapidly spiraled out of control. Within 3 weeks, human startup companies had filed thousands of patents based on scans of the Mixalti ships. They weren't just copying the technology, they were improving it. Vexnar watched in horror as a human news report showed a shield umbrella that was more energy efficient than their ship shields. A human child had apparently suggested making the power distribution work like a sprinkler system instead of a full bubble. The final blow came when the Mixalti's own crews started ordering human products. "Sir," his quartermaster reported shamefully, "their shield water bottles keep drinks at the perfect temperature for 24 hours, and they're selling them in bulk packages." Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Zixtal watched the reports with a mixture of vindication and dread. The Mixalti Trading Consortium, one of the most powerful economic forces in the galaxy, had withdrawn from Earth's solar system in embarrassment. "They turned our most advanced defense technology into consumer products," a Mixalti representative complained to the council. "In less than a month. And now, they're selling it back to our own people." Elder Ix of the Duraxians let out the equivalent of a chuckle. "You tried to intimidate a species that once looked at a deadly poison from a specific coffee plant and thought, 'I'm going to drink that.' What did you expect?" In his private chambers, Zixtal added another entry to his personal log. "The Mixalti learned today what the council wouldn't hear yesterday. Humans don't just adopt technology, they transform it. They don't ask, 'How does it work?' but rather, 'What else can it do?' And perhaps most terrifyingly, they ask, 'How can we make it cheaper and sell it to everyone?'" Somewhere on Earth, a teenager was already figuring out how to turn Mixalti engine technology into a hoverboard. The Kryvax war fleet hung in orbit around humanity's first colony world, New Eden. Admiral Cthor stood aboard his command ship, his armored exoskeleton gleaming under the bridge lights. His species had evolved from apex predators, and their military might was legendary across the galaxy. "These humans have grown too powerful, too quickly," Cthor growled to his officers. "First, they steal Mixalti technology, and now they're spreading to the stars. We must crush them before they become a real threat." The colony below looked peaceful, a small settlement of 10,000 humans, with massive terraforming towers reaching into the sky. These towers slowly transformed the planet's toxic atmosphere into breathable air. To Cthor, they looked like perfect targets. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Destroy those towers first. Without their air processors, they'll be forced to evacuate." The Kryvax ships opened fire, their plasma cannons lighting up the night sky. The first shots hit the nearest terraforming tower and bounced off. "Impossible," Thor roared. "Those are civilian structures." His weapons officer frantically checked the readings. "Sir, they've modified the McSalty shield technology. It's built into the tower's walls." Before Thor could respond, something strange happened. The towers began to pulse with energy. The colony's chief engineer, Sarah Chen, stood in the control room, a grim smile on her face. "They want to play with our terraforming towers," she said to her team. "Let's show them what these babies can really do." With a few quick commands, she reprogrammed the tower's atmospheric processors. Instead of gradually changing the atmosphere, they now created concentrated storms around the Kryvax ships. Lightning bolts, perfectly guided by the tower's magnetic field generators, struck ship after ship. "Their shields are failing," Thor's officer screamed. "The electrical storms are overloading our systems." But the humans weren't done. From the colony's mining complex, huge machines rolled out. These weren't weapons. They were standard mining equipment used to break up asteroids for minerals. But today, they had a different purpose. "Release the rockhoppers," ordered Colony Director Johnson through the emergency broadcast system. The mining machines activated their gravity manipulators, tools normally used to move asteroids. Now they pulled chunks of the planet's surface into the air and hurled them at the Kryvax fleet with terrifying accuracy. Thor watched in horror as his mighty warships were pelted with boulder-sized rocks, their weakened shields useless against the primitive but effective attack. "These are mining tools," he shouted in disbelief. "They're attacking a military fleet with mining equipment." The final blow came when the humans revealed their last surprise. The colony's waste recycling units, modified with shield technology, began launching compressed garbage at near-light speed toward the Kryvax ships. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, face pale with shock, "we're being defeated by their trash." Back at the Galactic Council, the news of the Kryvax defeat spread quickly. Zixtal added another urgent entry to the archives. "The humans have proven again why they're so dangerous. They don't build weapons. They turn everything into a weapon. A terraforming tower becomes a storm generator. Mining tools become artillery. Even their garbage becomes ammunition." Elder Ix of the Duraxians called an emergency council session. "First, they turned our shield technology into consumer goods. Now they've turned their civilian equipment into defensive weapons. Do you understand now why we warned you?" The council members sat in stunned silence as they watched recordings of the battle. The mighty Kryvax fleet, reduced to retreat by machinery that wasn't even designed for combat. In the colony below, Sarah Chen was already drafting improvements to the terraforming towers. "You know," she said to Director Johnson, "if we adjust these storm generators, we could use them to water our crops. No reason to waste good technology just because it was used in a fight." Somewhere in the galaxy, the Kryvax military command was frantically rewriting their combat manuals to include a new warning. "Against humans, assume everything is a weapon. Everything." The Galactic Council's Cultural Preservation Committee met in an emergency session. The chamber was filled with worried representatives from across the galaxy. On the main screen, images flashed showing something that terrified them more than any human weapon. Teenagers from different alien species wearing human blue jeans and T-shirts. Committee head Valsha, a being made of pure crystalline light, flickered in distress. "It's worse than we feared. Human entertainment has spread to 37 star systems in just 6 months." The evidence was overwhelming. In the Proxima system, young Zendarians had started something called a skateboard park, using their natural ability to manipulate gravity. On the gas giant colonies of Jupiter, the floating nebulons had adapted human surfing to ride the giant storm waves in their atmosphere. But nothing, Valsha continued, is more concerning than this. The screen showed various alien species gathering in what they called coffee shops. Dr. Montauk, a respected xenobiologist, stepped forward, his tentacles wrapped nervously around his datapad. This coffee substance is highly addictive to most species. The Arthaxians are especially vulnerable. Their entire worker caste now refuses to start their shift without something called a triple espresso. In the dark corners of space stations and trading posts, a new kind of criminal had emerged, the coffee smuggler. The most notorious was Captain Jin Rodriguez, who had become a legend for running Starbucks' original Earth blend through military blockades. But coffee was just the beginning. Human music had infected the galaxy's youth. In the crystalline cities of the Valaxians, teenagers had started rock bands, using their natural resonance abilities to create what they called crystal rock fusion. "Look at this outrage," shouted Representative Kex of the Hive Worlds. The screen showed young drones wearing leather jackets and staging what they called rebellions by refusing to join their assigned worker groups. An even more disturbing report came from the warrior Kryvax worlds. Their young had discovered human action movies and video games. Now, instead of honorable combat formations, young Kryvax warriors were trying to do backflips and one-liner catchphrases during battle. They're even adopting human mating rituals, moaned Cultural Officer Pex. Young Centaurians are going on something called dates instead of following their traditional binary fusion ceremonies. They sit in eating establishments, consume sustenance together, and engage in something called small talk. The committee watched in horror as security footage showed a young Meridian attempting to eat a hamburger despite their species having no mouths and surviving purely on light. Elder Ix of the Duraxians floated into the chamber, carrying more disturbing news. The humans have introduced something even more dangerous: weekend brunch. Several advanced civilizations have reported their productivity dropping by 23% due to something called mimosas. Zixtal, who had been quietly observing, added another entry to the archives. Human culture spreads not through force, but through appeal. They don't demand others become like them. They make others want to become like them. Perhaps this is the most powerful weapon of all. In a final desperate attempt to contain the spread, the Council banned human entertainment broadcasts. The result was predictable: an explosive growth in pirated content and underground viewing parties. "We found an entire hive ship conducting something called a movie night," reported a security officer. "They were watching all 8 Fast and Furious movies back to back. When we tried to stop them, they said they lived their lives 1/4 parsec at a time." Valsh's crystalline form dimmed in resignation. "We can't stop it. Their culture is too entertaining." As the committee adjourned in defeat, a young Valaxian assistant could be heard humming something that sounded suspiciously like human pop music. Several older council members found themselves unconsciously tapping along. In the archives, Zixtal made one final note: "Today, we realize that humanity's greatest conquest wasn't through their weapons or technology. It was through their ability to make the galaxy laugh, dance, and drink overpriced coffee." The Grand Peace Conference was supposed to solve the human problem. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the Galactic Council's most prestigious chamber. The walls sparkled with living light, and translator devices hummed softly in the background. Sarah Martins, Earth's junior diplomatic aide, sat quietly in the back, taking notes on her tablet. Nobody paid much attention to her. After all, she was just a human assistant, there to fetch drinks for the real diplomats. High Commissioner Zexthor stood at the central podium, his ceremonial robes flowing dramatically. "We are here to establish strict boundaries for human expansion," he announced. "The humans must learn to follow our ancient and proper ways." That's when Sarah raised her hand. The gesture was so unexpected that Zexthor actually stopped talking. "Yes, human aid," he said, trying to hide his annoyance. "I just have a question about Council Law 247B, Sarah said innocently. The one about species rights. What about it? Zexthor asked. Well, it says all spacefaring species have the right to expand into uninhabited systems. And according to Law 124A, a system is considered uninhabited if it has no native intelligent life. Right. Correct, Zexthor replied, wondering where this was going. Sarah smiled. So, when the Kryvax blocked our colony ships from the Proxima system last month, they actually violated Council law. Which means, according to Section 89C, they owe us compensation. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The Kryvax representative turned an angry shade of purple. That's not what those laws meant. Zexthor sputtered. But it's what they say, Sarah replied cheerfully. And according to Council Charter Article 5, all laws must be followed exactly as written. Within days, Sarah's simple observation spread across the galaxy. Servant species discovered that the ancient laws actually guaranteed them rights their masters had ignored for centuries. The Hivemans found that their worker drones were legally entitled to vacation time. The Crystalline Collective realized they could demand equal trading rights. What have you done? Zixtal asked Sarah during a private meeting. Oh, we humans call it malicious compliance, she explained, sipping her coffee. Following the rules so perfectly that it reveals how silly they are. The galaxy's bureaucracy descended into chaos. The Arthaxians' worker caste began a work-to-rule protest, following every safety regulation so precisely that cargo shipments took 10 times longer. The Meridian Light beings started demanding their legally mandated darkness breaks. In the Council archives, reports piled up. The Zentarian Mining Guild discovered they were owed 10,000 years of overtime pay. Drone workers started forming unions. The Crystalline Collective's lower classes found out about minimum wage laws. Elder Ix watched it all with growing amusement. The humans didn't break a single law, they observed. They just read them carefully. Sarah's approach spread to other human diplomats. They began pointing out legal loopholes and forgotten regulations across the galaxy. Soon, previously powerless species were demanding their rights using the Council's own laws against them. It's revolution without rebellion, Zixtal wrote in his archives. Change without violence. The humans have weaponized bureaucracy itself. The final straw came when a group of human lawyers discovered that, according to the original Council charter, the Council itself was technically operating illegally because it hadn't held proper elections in 50,000 years. In his private chambers, High Commissioner Zexthor nursed a headache. How do we stop them? He asked his advisors. We can't, one replied miserably. They're following every rule perfectly, just not the way we meant them to be followed. As chaos spread through the bureaucratic systems of the galaxy, Sarah Martinez sat in the Earth Embassy, teaching a group of alien representatives about something called passive resistance and peaceful protest. Remember, she told them with a smile, sometimes the best way to change bad rules is to follow them perfectly. In the archives, Zixtal added a new note. Today we learned humanity's most powerful weapon. They don't break the rules. They'd break the system using its own rules against it. The Doraxian mothership hung in space like a cloud of golden stardust. Inside, Elder Ix floated in their meditation chamber, their forms shimmering with thoughtful patterns. On the viewing screen before them, a human diplomat named James Chen stood waiting. Do you know why we brought you here, James Chen? Elder Ix's thoughts echoed in the human's mind. James adjusted his glasses nervously. Because we've caused too much trouble. The ancient being's form rippled with what might have been laughter. No, young one. Because you've caused exactly the right kind of trouble. The chamber's walls shifted, revealing images from galactic history. The Doraxians had washed over the galaxy for 100,000 years, guiding civilizations, preventing wars, maintaining balance. We are tired, Elder Ix explained. For too long, we've carried this burden alone. We've been searching for a species that could help us, one that thinks differently. James watched in amazement as more images appeared, humans turning shields into foam cases, terraforming towers into weapons, and most recently, using ancient laws to give rights to servant species. But why us? James asked. We're so young compared to other species. Exactly. A younger Duraxian named Kay floated into the chamber. You're young, but you solve problems in ways we never imagined. Watch this. Kay showed them a recording of a human child playing a video game. This young one solved a puzzle that our greatest minds struggled with for centuries. When we asked her how, she said, "I just tried stuff until something worked." The Duraxians had invited selected human diplomats to their ship to learn the hidden truths of galactic politics. But something unexpected happened. The humans started suggesting improvements to systems the Duraxians had used for millennia. What if we used game theory here? Suggested Sarah Martinez, who had been invited after her success with malicious compliance. She was looking at the Duraxians' conflict prevention protocols. Game theory? Elder Ix asked. Yeah, like in strategy games. If you make peace more profitable than war, species will choose peace on their own. No need for complicated rules. The Duraxians were stunned. In all their years of peacekeeping, they had never considered making peace economically attractive. They had always relied on rules and punishments. During another session, a human teenager who had hacked their way into restricted council databases, impressing the Duraxians greatly, suggested using social media to spread peace. Seriously, the young hacker said, just make peace look cool. Start a TikTok trend or something. Elder Ix spent 3 days trying to understand what TikTok was, but they had to admit the idea had merit. The humans also pointed out simple flaws in ancient systems. Why do your containment protocols only focus on stopping bad behaviors? Asked James. Why not reward good ones? It's like basic psychology. In his private quarters, Zixtol received regular updates about these meetings. His archive entry that day read, "The Duraxians didn't choose humans as successors because we're the strongest or smartest. They chose us because we're willing to try ridiculous solutions that turn out to be brilliant." The partnership between humans and Duraxians grew stronger each day. Humans provided fresh perspectives and crazy ideas, while the Duraxians offered wisdom and experience to refine these ideas. You know what's funny? James said to Elder Ix one day. Everyone was so worried about us breaking the galaxy, but maybe what the galaxy needed was a little breaking and rebuilding. Elder Ix's form glowed with approval. That, young one, is exactly why we chose you. Other species seek to understand the universe. Humans ask, how can we make it better? In the Great Archives, Zixtol added his final note of the day. The Duraxians, in their ancient wisdom, saw what we all missed. Humanity's greatest strength isn't their ability to break rules or make weapons. It's their endless belief that everything can be improved, and their willingness to try any solution, no matter how strange it seems. 5 years after the Duraxian Gambit, the Galactic Council chambers looked very different. Gone were the towering podiums that had kept the important species above the rest. Instead, circular discussion areas filled the space, where representatives from all species could talk as equals. In one corner, a former servant-class Arthaxian was teaching a Kryvax warrior how to make coffee. Near them, a group of younger aliens were showing their elders how to use Reddit, a human communication platform that had somehow become the galaxy's most popular way to share ideas. Sarah Martinez, now Earth's senior ambassador, stood with Elder Ix and Zixtol, watching the scene with satisfaction. You know, Sarah said, when we first came to space, everyone thought we would conquer the galaxy with weapons. Instead, we did it with coffee shops and social media. Elder Ix's golden form sparkled with amusement, and by suggesting that everyone should actually talk to each other instead of just making rules. The biggest change had come 3 months ago. The Council had discovered that their own founding document promised equal representation for all sentient beings. When humans pointed this out, the Council couldn't argue against its own most sacred text. Now, species that had once been considered too primitive or not advanced enough had their own representatives. Even the artificial intelligences, created by various species, had gained rights after a human lawyer argued that the founding document said all sentient beings, not all biological beings. Remember how scared everyone was of humans? Zixtal asked, his tentacles waving gently. They thought you would destroy everything. Instead, you just rearranged it. In the center of the chamber, a young Meridian was presenting a new idea for faster-than-light travel, based on something they had learned from human video games. The older council members, who would have dismissed such an idea 5 years ago, were listening intently. The funny thing is, Sarah observed, we didn't actually change that much. We just got everyone to start asking why not, instead of we can't. The changes hadn't always been smooth. Some older species still grumbled about the good old days, but it was hard to argue with the results. Trade was up, conflicts were down, and new innovations appeared daily as species learned to work together instead of competing. Even the Kryvax, once the galaxy's most militant species, had found a new calling. They had become the galaxy's premier extreme sports instructors, teaching other species how to safely enjoy human-inspired activities like zero-gravity skateboarding and asteroid surfing. The Council's final attempt to stop us was pretty funny, Sarah remembered with a smile. They tried to argue that letting everyone have a voice would lead to chaos. And instead, Elder Ix prompted. Instead, it led to the most peaceful and productive period in galactic history. Zixtal finished, consulting his archives. Turns out, when you let people talk to each other and share ideas, they're less likely to fight. The chamber's main display showed statistics that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. Interspecies cooperation up 300%. Technological innovation rate increased by 500%. Conflict rates down by 89%. Coffee consumption up 1,000%. This one worried some health officials. In the corner, a group of young aliens from different species were planning something called a galactic food festival, arguing about whether plasma-based life forms could participate in a hot dog eating contest. You know what the best part is? Sarah said to her companions. We didn't have to force anyone to change. We just had to show them that change could be fun. Zixtal made his final archive entry. When humans reached the stars, we thought they would change everything. We were right, but not in the way we expected. They didn't change the galaxy by force or fear. They changed it by making everyone believe that change was possible, that rules could be questioned, and that different didn't mean wrong. Elder Ix looked at the busy chamber with satisfaction. And to think, we once warned everyone to beware of humans. Oh, they still should, Sarah laughed. We got lots more ideas.